I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business podcast. I'm your host, Kara Chafin-Donofrio. And today we are talking about the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And if you joined us last week, I had talked to you about how we're going to take the remainder of the year and go through each agreement one by one in this little book. And it is a little book. If you're on the video version, you can see it's a small little book, but it is very powerful and really has the potential to create life-changing freedom and open you to a different level of self-love, I believe. And I know that it's had that impact on me. It's also one of those books that you can read and reread and get something out of it each time. But I wanted to talk about this in particular because this book did have a really, I was really impacted by these agreements, and it did change how I viewed others, viewed myself. And I'm hoping as we go into the new year that it could have that, same impact on you, or at least that's the intention. So again, the second agreement we're going to be looking at today is called Don't Take Anything Personally. And when I first read the book, this was one of the agreements that stuck with me the most and had the biggest impact. So I'm excited to share with you today about this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts too. If you have any comments or you want to DM me, you can reach me on my Instagram, Kara Chafin-Donofrio, and would love to hear what your thoughts are about the book and how it may or may not have affected you as well. So the second agreement, not taking anything personally. Again, all of these agreements are very easy to say, easy to do, but very easy not to do too, right? Because how often do we get caught in this emotional tug of war when somebody says something we don't like or somebody says something that we perceive to be hurtful to us? And so I think when we look at the agreement, not taking anything personally, it's important to know that whatever anybody says about you is really all about their own beliefs, their own upbringing, their own view of the world. And so when we can look at that from that lens and we realize that if somebody calls you dumb, for example, right, they're doing that from their own perception and their own upbringing and their own world. And they're trying to spew this particular poison onto you. And so when we take it personally, it means that there is some level of us that believes that to be true. And so that's what allows us to feel hurt or feel pain or feel whatever it is that we feel when somebody says something that we perceive to be hurtful. But if we realize that it's really whatever they're saying is really their own perception of the world, and when we can look at it and say, well, really, by taking things personally, we're kind of making it about us. We're making it about our own personal importance and realizing that nothing anybody does is about you, right? And so when we take something personally, we make the assumption that other person knows what is in our world, and then we try to impose our world on their world. So even when a situation seems personal or insults you directly, it really has nothing to do with you. And I think that when we take that in, we become easily manipulated, or we can, really allow that to hurt us when we can instead have the power to say and have the power to recognize that actually nothing that other person does is about me. It's really about them. So I think that from an a negative standpoint, we can see that to be true. I think the other interesting thing about this agreement is that it also references that the flip side is true. When somebody says something really positive about you, when somebody gives you a lot of accolades and says, "Oh, you're so smart. You are, the best," right? Then what do? We think, "Oh my gosh, I love that person. They're so great." And, we take that in, we take that personally, right? But what this is saying is that no matter what somebody says about you, whether it's good or bad, it really is about them. And that, while sometimes that can feel good, right? To think, "Oh, well, that person said is so nice about me." But in the end, it's really how we feel about ourselves that really matters, right? So that we're not just looking for validation of others to fill our own love tank, so to speak. And so, if you, the author says, if you live without fear, if you love, then there is no place for any of those emotions. If you don't feel any of those emotions, it is logical that you will feel good. When you feel good, everything around you is good. When everything around you is great, everything makes you happy. And you're loving everything that is around you because you are loving yourself. So again, not taking things personally, whether it's good or bad, so that we don't take in this kind of emotional piece that people are sharing with us, right? So we don't make it about them, but we have our own sense of self-worth and validation from within. And I think that's really interesting too, because so many times I think now in our society, we've talked about it before on this show, but in social media, it is I've seen it for many entrepreneurs and friends, and I've experienced it even myself. When somebody leaves positive comments or when somebody leaves negative comments, that can actually impact our day because we're affected by and we're taking personally what somebody else feels about us, whether it's good or bad. And so being on that emotional swing, we have the ability to go from one extreme and think, "Oh, wow, what a great day. People are commenting, people are liking my videos," or whatever it is, right? We can go from an emotional high to then the next minute, literally, sometimes it can be that quick, where somebody says something negative and then you get drawn to the total opposite spectrum. It's kind of crazy when we can see it from that perspective. But then again, that's the epitome of taking things personally because we're allowing our own identity, our own self-worth to be tied to what somebody else is saying about us, whether it is good or bad. And so, it's interesting because, the Don Miguel Ruiz, he says, "Whatever people do, feel, think, or say, don't take it personally. If they tell you how wonderful you are, they are not saying it because of you. You know you are wonderful. It is not necessary to believe other people who tell you you are wonderful. Don't take anything personally," right? So when you can do that, you can live in a state of more bliss, a bliss and a love that comes from within versus needing the approval of someone else. Interestingly, he also talks about the mind and the voices that we have in our own mind. And um, I think this is kind of interesting too, because we think about, the egoic mind and how many times we're talking to ourselves throughout the day. I know in meditation, they sometimes call it the monkey mind, but where you've got all these different voices speaking to you, whether it's, "Oh, you did a great job at that. Oh, you're terrible at that," or whatever it is, right? So even trying to block out the voices in our own head that can sometimes mess with us, right? And again, cause us to have these emotional highs and lows. And I don't actually know the right pronunciation, but he calls it the mitote. I think that's a Spanish word. And he compares the mind to that, where the mitote can be compared to a huge marketplace where thousands of people are talking and bartering at the same time. Each one has different thoughts and feelings. Each one has a different point of view. And that's the programming that can exist in our own mind. So how do we calm that? How do we not take that personally as well? I think that's an interesting thing to note, and something that that I am always working on as well. And there's no perfect balance to this, but I think the awareness and knowing that it's there, the awareness of saying, okay, I'm going to make a conscious decision to not take things personally, whether it's coming from without or outside of me or within. And the other thing is, we talk about, even as parents, we talk about with our kids, how do we do this with our kids? How do we help them? And so that because they're naturally, even with siblings, right? So my daughter, she came in the other day and she said, Christian told me that I was dumb. And I said to her, well, do you believe you're dumb? Because I don't think you're dumb. That's a silly thing to say, And so how do we train them to not take in what somebody else is telling them? So I said, well, what if he said you were a frog? Does that mean that you're a frog? Well, no, that doesn't mean I'm a frog, is what she said. And so helping them understand, and as a parent, how do we, help our kids understand this really, really simple concept, but also really hard concept when we're, especially as kids, and we grow up to needing the approval of others. So how do we break free from that? And I'll end with Don Miguel's words, which are, if you keep this agreement, you can travel around the world with your heart completely open and no one can hurt you. You can say, I love you, without fear of being ridiculed or rejected. You can ask for what you need. You can say yes, or you can say no, whatever you choose, without guilt or self-judgment. You can choose to follow your heart always, and then you can be in the middle of hell and still experience inner peace and happiness. You can stay in your state of bliss, and hell will not affect you at all. And so I think that, again, the power that this agreement gives us is the power of not needing to place your trust in what other people do or say, but rather placing your trust in yourself to make responsible choices. So with that, wishing you a beautiful rest of your day, and until next time. Loved being here with you today and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in @KaraChafin_Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my Dynamic Life Journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.